to see the PPT?
Yes, sir.
So shall I start the class?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So today we'll discuss about the disorders of middle ear. So in last class we have discussed about the illustration to diseases. So here the disorders of middle ear are mainly linked to eustachian tube. So if there is any problem in the eustachian tube functioning, so then there will be a diseases of the middle ear will start. So what are the parts of middle ear cleft? Roll number 80. Parts of middle ear cleft. Roll number 80. Middle ear cleft parts. Roll number 80.
Eustachian tube,
Yeah.
middle ear cavity,
Hmm.
and
Middle ear cavity. Next.
malleus incus.
No, malleus and incisor comes within the middle ear cavity. Parts of middle ear cleft. Chanakya.
Mastoid gas cell,
Hmm.
tympanic cavity,
Hmm.
epitympanum, hypotympanum,
Epitympanum, hypotympanum, mesotympanum, all are included in the middle ear proper. Okay. So don't tell separately in the middle ear cleft. What are the parts of the middle ear cleft means? You should tell from anterior to posterior. So that is from the eustachian to middle ear cavity proper, middle ear cavity proper, adductus, mastoid antrum, and the mastoid air cells. So these are the 5 parts of the middle ear cleft. So here, so today we'll discuss about the diseases of the middle ear. So here you need to remember middle ear means, so that is part of the middle ear cleft. So there is involvement of the entire middle ear cleft, some of the diseases. So today we'll discuss about the acute suppurative otitis media and non-suppurative otitis media or serous otitis media and otitis barotrauma. So these are the 3 topics I'll cover today. So first coming to the acute suppurative otitis media. So it is infection and inflammation of the middle ear cavity. So it is acute infection and inflammation of the middle ear cavity by pyogenic organisms. So here you need to remember middle ear means there is involvement of the middle ear cleft entire. So these are the parts of the middle ear cleft, eustachian to middle ear proper and adductus. So adductus means it is a communication between the middle ear and the mastoid antrum. This is the mastoid antrum and the mastoid air cell system. These are the 5 parts. So it is an acute inflammation, infection and inflammation of the middle ear cavity. So then coming to the etiology, it is commonly will see in the children and infants. So why? Because the eustachian tube is shorter, wider and less angulation at the level of the isthmus in eustachian tube in children compared to the adults. So in the last class I told about the eustachian tube anatomy. So one of the commonest route for the spread of the infection to the middle ear is eustachian tube. So that's why you will see the repeated middle ear infections in children and infants. So these are the routes of the infection. Routes of infection to the middle ear. So the most common route is via eustachian tube. Second one is the external ear and third one is bloodborne. So among these three, almost 90 to 95% it is through the eustachian tube. So because in children it is shorter, wider, less angulation at the isthmus. So next route of infection is external ear. So it is if there is a pre-existing perforation due to trauma or due to any infection, pre-existing perforation in the tympanic membrane. So the infection may spread through the perforated tympanic membrane into the middle ear cavity. So that is also one of the route of infection. So most commonly you'll see the eustachian tube, through eustachian tube, and acute suppurative otitis media is most commonly you'll see in the children. So the other route is bloodborne. This is very rarely you'll see the bloodborne spread of the bacterial infection. So then predisposing factors for the acute suppurative otitis media. So usually it is followed by the upper respiratory tract infection. So because of the upper respiratory tract infection, the infection spreads from the nose and nasopharynx. If there is infection in the adenoids and tonsils, that infection spreads from the these focus of the infection through the eustachian tube into the middle ear cavity. So then chronic rhinitis and sinusitis, if the patient is having the allergy, nasal allergy, that is also one of the route of spread of infection.
This conference will now be recorded.
Tumors of nasopharynx, and if there is cracking of the nose and nasopharynx for the fixed axis. So these are the predisposing factors for the development of the acute suppurative otitis media. So these are the commonest bacteria causing the ASYM. So Streptococcus pneumonia, that is most common bacteria causing the ASYM, Haemophilus influenza and Moraxella catarrhalis. So this accounts around 30%, this is 20%, this is 12% of the total ASYM cases. Streptococcus pneumonia, Haemophilus influenza and the Moraxella catarrhalis. So then coming to the pathology and clinical features of ASY. So there are 5 stages in pathogenesis of the acute suppurative otitis media. So number 1 is stage of tubal occlusion, that means eustachian tube blockage, stage of pre-suppuration, stage of suppuration, and stage of resolution and stage of complication. So these are the 5 stages. First coming to the stage of tubal occlusion. So if there is a problem in the nasopharyngeal end of the eustachian tube, so if there is blockage, then patient will develop the symptoms. So because of eustachian tube blockage, so there will be initially negative pressure in the middle ear cavity and retraction of the tympanic membrane. So in the initial stage, patient feels the deafness and the earache. So mild deafness and mild earache will be there because of retraction of the tympanic membrane. So these two symptoms will be there. So these are the signs on examination. If you examine the tympanic membrane in tubal occlusion, tympanic membrane is retracted with handle of the malleus, assuming more horizontal position and prominence of the lateral process of malleus. So this is the lateral process of malleus. If you see the tympanic membrane, this is very thin and retracted. On cone of light is distorted. Second stage is pre-suppuration. Stage of pre-suppuration. So if the blockage is continued for longer duration, then next stage will come. So these are the symptoms. All first stage symptoms will increase in the stage of pre-suppuration. That is, earache and deafness will increase, and also tinnitus. Some patients will feel the ringing sensation in the sound. Ringing sensation in the ear. So if you examine the ear tympanic membrane by using the otoscope or otoendoscope, you can see the congestion of the tympanic membrane. So that is, entire pop sensor will be congested, and you can see the leaves of blood vessels appear along the handle of the malleus and also around the tympanic annulus. So the appearance of the tympanic membrane in this stage, we call it as cartwheel appearance. Stage of suppuration. So in this stage, patient will have the severe excruciating pain, unbearable pain. So because of the accumulation of the fluid in the middle ear cavity, that is, infected material will become accumulated in the middle ear cavity, and tympanic membrane will become bulged into the external aortic canal. So this is on examination, tympanic membrane, you can see the bulging tympanic membrane. So on loss of landmarks of the entire tympanic membrane. You cannot see any handle of malleus or lateral process and cone of light. So if you apply the pressure over the mastoid region, these patients may have the tenderness. And X-rays of the mastoid will show clouding of the air cells because of the extruate in the mastoid antrum and the air cells. So this is the X-ray of the mastoid. So you can see the loss of clouding of the air cells or haziness of the air cells. That is because of the accumulation of the fluid in the mastoid antrum and air cells. Stage of resolution. So if you treat the patient properly, so then symptoms will reduce. So properly means you have to treat the surrounding infections, you have to give the antihistamines and analgesics and decongestants, local and systemic decongestants. So these will helpful for the relieve the edema over the eustachian tube, that is nasopharyngeal end of the eustachian tube, and reduce the symptoms. So sometimes there is a spontaneous perforation in the tympanic membrane in this stage. So most of the time it is very small, tiny perforation in the anterior-inferior quadrant of the tympanic membrane, so that the pressure will decrease in the middle ear cavity. All the infected material will evacuate into the external aortic canal. So in this stage, patient may relieve the symptoms because of the perforation or because of the proper treatment. So the symptoms will reduce. Sometimes the patient will complain red-stained ear discharge in the external aortic canal, then later purulent discharge. If there is a perforation in the tympanic membrane, red-stained ear discharge and the purulent discharge. So the other systemic fever, headache or mastoid tenderness will reduce in the stage of resolution. So on clinical examination, you can see the perforation. If there is a perforation, sometimes the tympanic membrane is intact. The congestion of the tympanic membrane will reduce in the stage of resolution. So you can see the blood-stained or purulent discharge in the external aortic canal. Then stage of complication. So if the patient doesn't take proper treatment, suppose inadequate dose of the antibiotics or improper duration, then the infection will continue. The infection will spread beyond the confines of the middle ear cavity. That means it may spread into the mastoid antrum air cells. The other complications of the ASOL may occur. So the reasons for the stage of complications is low body resistance, high virulence of the organism and improper use of the antibiotics. So these three reasons may cause the spread of infection beyond the confines of the middle layer cavity. So these are the some of the complications of the ASYM or CSYM. These broadly will divide into extracranial and intracranial. In extracranial, mastitis, labyrinthitis, petositis, and facial nerve paralysis. Intracranial, meningitis, extradural abscess, subdural abscess, lateral sinus thrombophlebitis, and cerebellar abscess or temporal lobe abscess, and otitic hydrocephalus. So these are the complications of the ASYM and also CSYM. So then coming to the treatment. So you have to treat the primary cause. Suppose patient most of the time ASYM will see in the children and infants, that too followed by the upper respiratory tract infection. So these are the two important clinical history. The patient will present to you with the sudden severe earache. That is, usually they will give the preceding history of the upper respiratory tract infection. So you have to examine the patient thoroughly. So if there is any acute tonsillitis, rhinosinusitis, you have to treat the sinusitis, tonsillitis, or rhinosinusitis along with the ASY. So if there is a patient who has the history of allergic rhinitis, you should treat the allergic rhinitis. So then you should go for the medical treatment of the ASY. So that already I told, antibiotics you should give at least for 7 to 10 days. The most common drug will give the amoxicillin with potassium chloride. That is for 7 to 10 days. Decongestants. So oral and nasal decongestants. That is, oral is phenylephrine and pseudoephedrine. And nasal decongestants are the oxymetazoline and xylometazoline. So these are the nasal or local decongestants, and the systemic decongestants is pseudoephedrine and phenylephrine. In India, we are commonly using the phenylephrine, that is 10 mg, along with the antihistamine. We give the antihistamine, it is systemic decongestants, and also simultaneously local decongestant, that is nasal decongestants. Antipyretics and analgesics, oral toilet. So if the patient comes to you in the stage of resolution with the ear discharge, you should clean the discharge in the external artery canal by using the suction apparatus or by using the dry mouth. So these are the various medical treatments for the ASY. So if the symptoms are not subsided, then you should go for the surgical treatment. So that is myringotomy. So you have to give the incision in the anterior-inferior quadrant of the tympanic membrane, that is the myringotomy. So to evacuate the pus. Sometimes we will insert the tube, ventilation tube, that is called the grommet. So that is about the acute suppurative otitis media medical treatment. If the after giving the medical treatment, if the symptoms are persistent, then we should go for the surgical treatment. The most common surgical treatment is myringotomy and the grommet insertion. Then coming to the next topic, that is serous otitis media or blue ear. So these are the synonyms for the serous otitis media or secretory otitis media or mucoid otitis media or blue ear. So you should remember this is completely non-infectious condition. The fluid which is accumulated in the middle ear cavity in this condition is completely sterile. So most of the time it is following the acute suppurative otitis media. So if we give the inadequate treatment for the ASYM, then patient will subside the symptoms of the infection, then fluid may persistent in the tympanic cavity. So then that leads to the non-suppurative otitis media or mucoid otitis media. So this is the definition of non-suppurative otitis media. Chronic accumulation of the mucus within the middle ear and sometimes mastoid air cell system. So to call it, it is as a chronic condition, at least the fluid accumulation will be present for 12 weeks, that is 3 months. So this is also most commonly we see in the children. So one of the commonest etiologies for non-suppurative otitis media is persistence of the ASY. So if they took the inadequate treatment for the ASY, the bacteria that is infected material will subside, but the fluid will be there in the middle ear cavity. So most of the time it is insidious in onset, and there is accumulation of the sterile fluid behind the intact tympanic membrane, and with hearing loss. The patient will complain of hearing loss because of the fluid in the middle ear cavity. Most of the time, the first episode of the non-suppurative otitis media is seen at the age of 2 years. So most commonly you'll see this condition between the 2 to 7 years or 2 to 6 years because of the anatomical variations in the eustachian tube. That is anatomical variation. That is short eustachian tube and the wide eustachian tube and less angulation at the isthmus. So the prevalence of the non-suppurative otitis media will decrease by increasing the age. After 15 years, you will see only 0.6% of the incidence. So most commonly you will see in the males compared to the females. Roll number 38. Roll number 38. Roll number 80. Roll number 80. What are the stages of ASYM? Roll number 80.
Yes. Um,
Stages of ASYM. ASYM stages. Sai
Stage of
Vinita.
pre-suppuration.
Stage of?
Pre-suppuration.
Okay.
Tubal
For
occlusion.
tubal occlusion. Tubal occlusion. Next step. Next stage.
Suppuration. Suppuration.
In which age group you will see commonly ASYM?
Years.
Huh? Which age group?
Pediatric age group.
Pediatric age group. Why in pediatric age group? Roll number 83.
Because of eustachian tube.
Eustachian tube. Eustachian tube is shorter and wider and less angulation at the isthmus.
Yes, sir.
What are the synonyms for the non-suppurative otitis media? Roll number 83. Sanjana. Synonyms.
No, sir, I don't know this.
Non-suppurative otitis media, serous otitis media, or discoid otitis
Yes.
media, or blue ear. Blue ear. You have to remember all these 4 words they may ask. It is very, very important essay question for you. So simply they will give as a write about blue ear, etiology, clinical features, and management of the blue ear. So for blue ear etiology, the main etiology is eustachian tubal dysfunction. So if there is any problem in the nasopharyngeal end of the eustachian tube, so then the air will not enter into the middle ear cavity. So then patient will have the negative pressure in the middle ear cavity, then retraction of the tympanic membrane and accumulation of the fluid, that is transudate or exudate in the middle ear cavity. So these are the various causes for the eustachian tubal dysfunction. So adenoid hyperplasia or hypertrophy, tumors in the nasopharynx, benign or malignant tumors of the nasopharynx, palatal defects, and barotrauma. So palatal defects, if there is a cleft palate, there is a eustachian tubal dysfunction. So it will not open properly or incomplete closure of the eustachian tube. So then the infections may spread from the nasopharyngeal end into the middle ear cavity. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy and edema during the radiation therapy. These are the eustachian tubal dysfunction, various causes for the eustachian tubal dysfunction. Among these, the main cause is adenoid hypertrophy. So along with the short eustachian tube, adenoid hypertrophy will cause the complete blockage of the nasopharyngeal end of the eustachian. So the second etiology is spread of infection from the nose and nasopharynx. If there is a chronic rhinosinusitis or adenoiditis or tonsillitis, there is a chance of spread of infection through the eustachian tube into the middle ear cavity. Third one is allergy. If the patient is having the allergy, then there is a increased secretions from the middle ear cavity. So in the middle ear cavity, the lining epithelium is ciliated columnar epithelium. So there is increase in the ciliated columnar epithelium. There is mucus and serous secreting glands will be there. So these glands will secrete the more amount of secretions because of the allergy. So third etiology is infections. So just now I told unresolved acute otitis media, acute suppurative otitis media. So because of the inadequate treatment for the acute suppurative otitis media, the infection will subside, but fluid may remain in the middle ear cavity. And viral infections. So eustachian tubal dysfunction, increased secretions in the middle ear cavity, and repeated infections and unresolved acute suppurative otitis media. These are the etiology for the non-suppurative otitis media or serous otitis media. So just now I told failure of the aeration of the middle ear and failure of the drainage of the secretions from the middle ear cavity, that is because of the eustachian tubal dysfunction, increased secretions in the middle ear cavity. So it may be because of the infection or it may be because of the allergy. So if you give the treatment, the symptoms may resolve spontaneously. So that is treatment means you have to ask the patient to do the repeated Valsalva maneuver. So that is by closing the nose and mouth and forcefully open the eustachian tube, then air will enter into the middle ear cavity, and that will helpful for the drainage of the secretions from the middle ear cavity. So if there is persistence of the eustachian tubal blockage and increased secretions, then it leads to the otitis media with effusion, OME. So the risk factors for the development of the otitis media with effusion is genetic predisposition, sibling with history of the otitis media with effusion, Down syndrome, cleft palate, tumors in the nasopharynx, immunodeficiency states, children below the 2 years of age. So these are the various risk factors for the development of the blue ear. So environmental risk factors, if there is a pollution in the environment, that the already patient is having any allergy, so then patient there is a chance of development of the otitis media with effusion. So one of the reason for the OME is allergic rhinitis. Children with the allergic rhinitis, So there is blockage of the eustachian tube, then accumulation of the secretions. So in allergic rhinitis, there is edema around the eustachian tube in the nasopharynx and increased secretions in the middle ear cavity because of the allergy. And in winters, it is most commonly we'll see the winters and children, those who are attending the daycares and low socioeconomic groups and use of the pacifiers. So these are the some of the risk factors for the development of the glue ear. So then clinical features, symptoms and signs. So here there is a negative pressure and accumulation of the fluid in the middle ear cavity. Definitely there will be a conductive type of hearing loss because the tympanic membrane is retracted and there is a fluid in the middle ear cavity. Mild otalgia. So the main difference between the acute suppurative otitis media and serous otitis media is otalgia. So in ASYM it is sudden and severe excruciating pain in ASYM, but in serous otitis media it is mild otalgia and feeling of fullness in the middle ear and tinnitus. So these are the 4 symptoms. So if you see the non-suppurative otitis media in children below the age of the 2 years, then there is a chance of delayed speech and poor academics because of the conductive hearing loss. So the development of the speech may be delayed and poor academics because of the conductive hearing loss. So the main symptoms are the blocking sensation, tinnitus, mild earache, and the hearing loss. So signs on examination, there is an otoscopy. So you can see the thin retracted membrane with fluid in the middle ear cavity. So you can see this is the retracted membrane with accumulation of the fluid. So there is loss of cone of light or distortion of the cone of light. You cannot see the clear cone of light in non-suppurative otitis media. So the fluid, the tympanic membrane may be yellow, gray, or blue depending upon the type of fluid which is accumulated in the middle ear cavity. So and sometimes you can see the air bubbles and fluid levels. So you can see the air fluid levels in the through the thin tympanic membrane in the middle ear cavity in serous otitis media. So on pneumatic otoscopy, that is, you have to apply the pressure in the external aortic canal by using the Siegel speculum. So you can see the movement of the tympanic membrane. So in non-suppurative otitis media, there is decrease in movement of the tympanic membrane because of the fluid in the middle ear cavity. So one more method to see the movement of the tympanic membrane is Valsalva maneuver. So in Valsalva maneuver, we will create a positive pressure in the middle ear cavity so that membrane will move into the external aortic canal. In Siegelization or Siegel speculum, we will create the positive pressure in the external aortic canal so that membrane will move into the middle ear cavity. So you can observe the movement of the tympanic membrane by using the otoscope. So that is the signs on clinical examination. So further evaluation you can do by using the audiometry. So audiometric evaluation is very, very important to know the amount of the hearing loss and degree of hearing loss and also what it is severity of the hearing loss. So there is 2 types of the audiometry. One is pure tone audiometry. Second one is the impedance audiometry. This is the graph of the pure tone audiometry. Here draw a graph. So here we will give the pure tones, that is single frequencies tones to the patient, then we will draw the graph. So these are the frequencies 125, 250 and 500,000. These are the intensities, decibels. In x-axis this is frequencies, y-axis it is intensities, 0, 10, 20, 30 decibels. So we'll increase the intensity of the sound. Patient will sit in the soundproof room, will give the sound stimulus with the different frequencies and different intensities. So the minimum amount of the intensity at which patient is able to hear the sound, that is called the threshold of that particular frequency. So here we will draw the 2 lines. This is for the bone conduction, this is for the air conduction. So normally bone conduction and air conduction thresholds will be at the level of the 0 decibels. So if there is a patient is having the conductive type of hearing loss, the bone conduction will remain in the 0 decibels, but air conduction thresholds will increase. So if you observe here, the thresholds for the air conduction are increased in the lower frequencies. So you can see this is called the air bone gap. So this is the bone conduction, this is the air conduction, you can see the air bone gap. If you are able to see the air bone gap in the two-tone audiometric graph, that means that is a conductive type of hearing loss. Suppose in case of sensory neural hearing loss, both the air conduction, bone conduction thresholds will be increased. We cannot see the air bone gap in the sensory neural hearing loss. So this is a conductive type of hearing loss in the low frequencies because of the accumulation of the fluid in the mid-ear cavity in the glue ear. So it is around 20 to 40 decibels of conductive hearing loss because of the fluid. So second type of audiometry is impedance audiometry. So impedance audiometry will do when the patient is having the conductive type of hearing loss with intact tympanic membrane. So if there is an intact tympanic membrane and conductive type of hearing loss, these type of audiometry will do. So the main principle of this impedance audiometry is here will present single frequency sound, that is 220 Hz, and will create a positive or negative pressure in the external auditory canal by using the impedance audiometry. So then if you present some amount of sound energy to the tympanic membrane, some of the sound energy will be absorbed through the tympanic membrane, some of the sound energy will be reflected from the tympanic membrane. The reflected sound will be picked up by the sensor which is kept in the external auditory canal, so that we can get the graphs, different types of the graphs in the impedance audiometry. So we can know which type of problem in the middle ear cavity by using the impedance audiometry. So by using the two-tone audiometry, you will know the type and degree of the hearing loss. By using the impedance audiometry, you can know what is the exact cause for the conductive hearing loss behind the tympanic membrane, whether there is oscular chain fixation or oscular necrosis or any fluid in the middle ear cavity, or if there is any simple retraction of the tympanic membrane. So here these are the next axis, these are the pressures in the external auditory canal. So in normal people will see the A type of impedance audiometry. So here you will see this is the compliance or mobility of the tympanic membrane in y-axis. These are the pressures. So this is type B impedance audiogram. In type B there is fluid in the middle ear. If there is a fluid in the middle ear cavity, you will see the flat curve in the impedance audiogram. That means there is no movement of the tympanic membrane or compliance of the tympanic membrane if you apply the pressure in the external auditory canal. Suppose if the tympanic membrane is normal in position and without any fluid in the tympanic membrane, you will get like this. A type of, you will see the peak in the 0 mm of H2O pressure. So this level will get the peak in the impedance audiogram. So if you get the peak, that means the compliance or mobility of the tympanic membrane is normal. So here there is no mobility of the tympanic membrane in blue ear. That's why there is flat curve in the impedance audiogram. So you have to read the two-tone audiometry and impedance audiometry. Generally, you can understand these two important audiological tests for evaluation of any patient with the hearing loss. So the other investigations are the radiological investigations. Usually will advise the X-ray neck lateral view for soft tissues, so that you can see any adenoid hypertrophy in the nasopharynx. And also X-ray mastoid colors view if there is any clouding of the hair cells or haziness of the mastoid anthem because of the non-suppurative otitis media. So one more clinical examination is you can do the endoscopy or posterior rhinoscopy. So if you do the posterior rhinoscopic examination or flexible or rigid endoscopy, You can clearly see the nasopharyngeal lesion. If there is any adenoid hypertrophy in the, this is normal nasopharynx. This is the choana. This is the eustachian tube opening. This is the thorax tuberous. Suppose if there is a adenoid hypertrophy, it will completely block the choana and it will cause the closure of the eustachian tube. So you can know if there is any problem in nasopharynx by endoscopy or posterior laryngoscopy. So that is about the features, symptoms and signs of the blue ear. Then medical treatment and surgical treatment of the non-suppurative otitis media. Medical treatment is, so most of the time it is sterile condition. The fluid which is present in the middle ear cavity is non-infectious. That's why there is no role for the antibiotics. You can give the antihistamines and decongestants. So decongestants will reduce the edema and will decongest the nasal mucosa and nasopharyngeal end of the eustachian tube. These are the systemic decongestants. These are the local decongestants. So local oxymetazoline and gallometazoline. Systemic is phenylephrine and the pseudoephedrine. So antihistamines, if the patient is having any allergy, you should give the anti-allergic treatment. Surface tension lowering agent, that is N-acetylcysteine, 30 mg tablet 3 times daily for 15 days. So if this patient develops the blue ear secondary to the AS1, sometimes you may add the antibiotics. Already I told that is amoxicillin. And middle ear aeration measures, that is you should instruct the patient to do the repeated Valsalva maneuver and polymerization of the eustachian tube or catheterization of the eustachian tube so that air will enter into the middle ear cavity. So then surgical treatment for non-suppurative otitis media. So the main surgical treatment is you have to make an incision in the tympanic membrane. So that is myringotomy. So most of the time we give the anterior inferior quadrant of the tympanic membrane. So if the symptoms are not relieved with the medical treatment, this is the surgical treatment. So this is the grommet or ventilating tube. So after giving the incision, this tube will insert into the tympanic membrane. So this will stay there for at least weeks to months, 2 to 3 months. So it will extrude from the tympanic membrane automatically by healing of the tympanic membrane. By fibrous tissue formation in the tympanic membrane, it will extrude from the tympanic membrane into the external auricular. So this will helpful for the drainage of the secretion and also aeration of the middle ear cavity. So this is called the grommet or key tube. So along with this treatment, suppose if the patient is having adenoid hypertrophy or tonsillar hypertrophy, so you should go for the adenoidectomy or tonsillectomy. Sometimes if the fluid is present in the mastoid antrum and air cells, you may go for the mastoidectomy also. Rarely we may require mastoidectomy, but the main surgical treatment for blue ear is myringotomy and grommet incision, and if there is associated adenotonsillar hypertrophy, you should go for the adenoidectomy and the tonsillectomy. So then sequelae of the otitis media with effusion. So if there is a long persisting fluid in the middle ear cavity, that will cause the atrophy of the tympanic membrane. So atrophy of the mainly middle fibrous layer of the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane will have the 3 layers: outer epithelial, middle fibrous and inner mucosal layer. So the middle fibrous layer will atrophy, then tympanic membrane will become very thin, then there is a retraction of the tympanic membrane towards the middle ear cavity, that is called the adhesive otitis media or atelectasis of the middle ear. So this is the atelectasis of the middle ear. We can see the oscular change. The tympanic membrane is totally adhered to the promontory. And retraction pocket formation in the posterior quadrant of the tympanic membrane. Atrophy of the tympanic membrane, cholesteatoma formation, oscular necrosis. So if there is a long persisting fluid in the middle ear cavity, the most common oscule which is necrosed during the otitis media with effusion is long process of the incus, sometimes suprastructure of the stapes, and tympanosclerosis. Lastly, tympanosclerosis is hyalinization and calcification of the middle fibrous layer. That is called the tympanosclerosis. So in this picture, you can observe this is the, so there is a chalky white plaque over the tympanic membrane. That is the tympanosclerosis. So if you observe this tympanic membrane, this is very thin and translucent. Here you can see the chalky white plaques. So the third condition is aero-otitis media or otitic barrow trauma. So most of the time it is a non-suppurative condition of the miliary due to failure of the eustachian tube to maintain the atmospheric pressure in the miliary cavity. So etiopathology for the aero-otitis media is during the rapid descent or during underwater diving. So there is sudden increase in the atmospheric pressure. So if the eustachian tube is unable to maintain the miliary pressure, then patient will develop the symptoms. So there is sudden negative pressure in the miliary cavity, then sudden retraction of the tympanic membrane. So if there is a positive pressure in the nasopharynx, that will cause the locking of the nasopharyngeal end of the eustachian tube by the soft tissues of the nasopharyngeal end of the eustachian tube. So if you examine the patient, there is a retraction of the tympanic membrane, mild congestion of the tympanic membrane, or sometimes accumulation of the hemorrhage or transudate into the middle ear cavity. So the most common symptom is pain and mild earache and mild hearing loss and blocking sensation in the middle ear cavity and also tinnitus. These are the 4 symptoms in the otitic barrow trauma. So mostly we see in the sudden rapid descent during the flight or underwater diving if the eustachian tube is unable to equalize the pressure in the middle ear cavity. So treatment is ask the patient to do the repeated swallowing movements and Valsalva maneuver and use of the decongestants, just now I told systemic and local decongestants, antihistamines, analgesics and antibiotics. So mostly it is if there is a secondary infection, then we can add the antibiotics, otherwise no need of antibiotics. The main thing is ask the patient to do the repeated swallowing movements so that there is opening of the eustachian tube and air entry will be there into the middle ear cavity. So surgical treatment for this aero-otitis media also myringotomy, and myringotomy is making a incision in the tympanic membrane. Myringoplasty is repair of the tympanic membrane. You have to remember these 2 terms. Myringotomy is different, myringoplasty is different. If already there is a perforation in the tympanic membrane, we'll do the myringoplasty. So without any perforation, to ventilate the middle ear cavity, we'll give the incision, that is the myringotomy. So how you will prevent the aero-otitis media or otitic barrow trauma? Avoid the air travel if there is a upper respiratory tract infection, and ask the persons to swallow repeatedly during the descent and do the Valsalva maneuver during the descent. This is only air travel. During the flight travel, so during descent, there is sudden increase in the atmospheric pressure, then they will develop the locking of the eustachian tube, then this otitic barrow trauma. So do not permit the children to sleep during the descent. So if they sleep, definitely the swallowing movements will be decreased. So there is no opening of the eustachian tube, then there is a chance of developing this otitic barrow trauma. Nasal decongestants before descent. So if the patient is having this repeated otitic barrow trauma, you can instruct the persons to use the decongestants, local and systemic decongestants half an hour before descent, so that there is a less chance for the development of the otitic barrow trauma. So this is about the acute suppurative otitis media, non-suppurative otitis media, and the blue ear. Students, Chanakya,
Yes, sir.
roll number 71.
Sir,
Okay. So what is the treatment for the blue ear?
The treatment is decongestants, which may be local and systemic, and then we can treat
Okay.
it with using antihistamines such as azelastine, steroids. We can do surgical procedures like myringotomy, adenoidectomy, tonsillectomy, cortical mastoidectomy.
Yeah. These are the surgical
Antibiotics
techniques.
we can use.
If it is secondary to the ASYM, you can give the antibiotics also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So all of you should write the assignments which you have circulated through WhatsApp. Students,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
inform
Yes,
all
sir.
the students. You should complete assignment which you have given already. So all these are the today's class is very important. There is chance of getting the essay question in the theory exam. ASYM is an important essay question, and also blue year is an important essay question. Otitic barochroma is a 4 marks question for you. All these three topics are important, both clinical and the theory exam. Any doubts or questions? Any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.